And hello once again, and welcome to Tuesdays with Lloyd's. I'm your host, Pat Talley, Regional Director and Managing Agent Practice Group Leader for Lloyd's in the U.S. Lloyd's has a very long tradition as a product innovator. Let's quickly revisit some examples of this from the last, 100 years or so. In 1904, Lloyd's issued the world's first auto or motor policy. 7 years later, it followed with the first coverage for aviation. In the 1930s, Lloyd's pioneered D&O coverage. And in 1965, Lloyd's premiered the first of its kind policy covering physical damage for a satellite. In 1971, the market introduced the world's first political risk coverage. And way back in 1999, Lloyd's issued the first policies to cover cyber risk. This trend of innovation continues as we roll through the 2000s, autonomous vehicles, drones, driverless cars, innovation in the sharing economy, and on and on. Today, we'll explore one of the most fundamental ways Lloyd's works to continue this tradition as an innovator and visionary. Established in 2018, the Lloyd's Lab serves as an incubator for innovative insurtech startups and is often referred to as the heart of innovation for insurance. We're very pleased to be joined live from the lab today by Kieran Linger, a Lloyd's Lab associate, who will tell us a bit more about the lab and host a discussion with two teams who have successfully come through the lab and established capacity in the Lloyd's market to begin writing. I'll nearly guarantee you what you're about to see is fascinating, and do feel free to submit questions for our guests using the Q&A function. And with that, welcome, Kieran. Please tell us a little more about the Lloyd's Lab and introduce us to your guests.
Happily. Thank you, Pat. So I'm just going to share my screen. I'm hoping that's up and running. So yes, thank you. So I'm here today to talk about the Lloyd's Lab. So the lab was set up almost 5 years ago now. And we were set up really to make the companies that operate within Lloyd's more efficient, but to also offer new and innovative products to the end customer, really through MGAs or cover holders. So we have a few strings to our bow. We have our accelerator program, which is the Lloyd's Lab cohort. We have the Lloyd's product launchpad, and we have Future Minds. So the Lloyd's Lab cohort is what we're most known for. It's really around the development of something. Whereas the product launchpad, I will explain, is more around those products that are ready to go to market. Future Minds is a scheme that we do with other people in the market, other insurers, your Beazley, Chawda, TMK, where it's to get people in their first few years of their insurance career into the market, start thinking innovatively. That's something which sometimes those junior brokers and underwriting assistants don't get to do. So the cohort program. So we're currently in our 10th cohort. I can see the teams working outside the meeting room I'm in, and they run once every 6 months for 10 weeks. So the program starts around 3 months prior, where we start taking applications. Now, we on average get around 200 applications per cohort. And we look at three things in that application. We look at team, product, and program. Team, we're looking at subject matter expertise. The two people I have joining me for a discussion later, Devin and Alexia, just like them, not everyone comes from insurance coming into the lab. It's great if you have 30 years experience working in the Lloyd's market, but we can't expect everyone to do so. So really all we're looking for is expertise in what you're trying to do. So once we've taken those applications, we start scoring. So it's a lengthy process. Well, I say lengthy. It's all of them are done in about 3 days, where we're looking across at your team. Products we're looking at, is it a Lloyd's market fit? Lloyd's is, specialty and commercial focused. It needs to fit that bracket. And then finally, we have program. Now, program is around the developments. This is one of the most important steps of the application. And we're not looking for business developments. We're looking for something that the mentors can get their teeth stuck into. Each team will get 8 to 12 mentors from the Lloyd's market. And these can be underwriters, brokers, claims, actuaries, the list goes on. And really, we're looking for something that each team can use their mentors and draw that expertise and draw their knowledge to help develop something. So once we've scored all of the teams, we will then long list. Long list is effectively just sense checking the top 40. Once those have been selected, we will then take them to the first stage of the markets, kind of almost verification. So we will present those teams to some of the innovation community, and they will then vote on what teams they are interested in, what teams they think have a suitable product. And that then selects the run up for pitch day. So if we're taking 10 teams, we'll invite 20 to pitch day, and they will have 5 minutes to pitch, 5 minutes Q&A. It's in front of 200-300 people from the Lloyd's market, and very simply, everyone will vote on their phones, 1 to 5. Once those teams have been selected, at the end of the day, I will literally just go and pull the scores, and the top, however many we want, will then join us. In between step 3 and 4, this is where we will match people up with their mentors. We want the maximum engagement that we can. No one wants to have emails ignored. Nobody also wants to be hassled. So it's self-select from both sides. We go out to over 500 people for mentors. We're grateful that many people have come forward, and they will then give us which teams they are interested in. Once they're matched up, the program then begins on the first week, and it's very much a crash course into the Lloyd's market and how it works, really. As I'm sure you all know, the Lloyd's market is really quite nuanced, especially in comparison to standard insurance, which is nuanced enough. So it really is a one-stop shop to get people up to speed, really. Now, in between the first week and the last week of the 10-week program, it really is very open stage. There is no formal structure as such. It's all around the development of the product, working with the mentors and building something. As we go through, there's midpoint reviews. We have a midpoint trade show, which is another step to engage with the market and help network. And then they will go on through to demo day. So demo day is the kind of grand finale. There'll be, again, 200-300 people from the Lloyd's market in the lab, and the teams will come on stage. They get a bit more time this time. They get 10 minutes to pitch, 5 minutes for questions and answers. And they will talk about who they are, what they came to do, what they did anything change, how it went, and where they're going now. And then once they leave the lab, it's not the end of the road. They become part of our alumni network. All of the teams still get to work from the Lloyd's market, from the Lloyd's lab, sorry. It's an easy win for these teams. A WeWork or an office space may cost £2,000-3,000 a month if you have a team of 10 or so. So if they're able to come into the Lloyd's lab and work in the hot desk environment, it helps both parties. So I just wanted to run through a couple of examples. So Parcel was started by a humanitarian out in Africa who was delivering vaccines to people out there. And his vaccines were coming across in shipping containers. Now, he had no real foresight in the condition of these vaccines prior to them arriving. So they could be water damage, shock, too hot, too cold. All of these variables came into play. So he developed this sensor for his own use, but also as a product to sell to people in a similar situation to him. And Parcel then came to us and said, well, look, we've collected all of this data on perishable goods in container ships. Is there a product we can build out of this? And well, yes, they can. They are now probably one of our most successful alumni. They have a syndicate in the market. They are probably one of the fastest companies to go from square one to a fully fledged syndicate, which is terrific. And they really are going from strength to strength at the moment. Of course, COVID was of course, a terrible time, but did help in terms of vaccines were being shipped around. So yeah, that really did help. We then also have Flood Flash. So Flood Flash are a cover holder in the Lloyd's market. And what they do, those are kind of halogen lights that you see in garages. They have a sensor that looks like that, which gets installed into your warehouse or property. And the higher up the water goes in the sensor, the more you get paid parametrically. So it's a really simple but really effective product that gets people back on their feet really quite quickly. We're not talking months and months here for claims, we're talking hours and days, which is super beneficial for some of these companies. So here are just a few figures that I've put together. So we've had over 1,800 teams apply to the lab, with over 200 come through pitch day. We have an alumni base of around 112 teams, which is terrific. We have had a couple of teams come twice. But the numbers that I think are the most interesting on this slide are on the right-hand side. So the 95% success rate, what I'm referring to there is, are they still running or have they had a successful exit? Now, out of 112 teams, we're delighted with this figure. If you talk to your standard VC, that number for teams going up to 5 years old, of course, some of these companies are much older, they would expect around 30%. So that's a great figure that shows at least we're picking the right companies. 71% still working in the Lloyd's market. That's showing the value adds that we're making. We've put, well, about 80 companies into the Lloyd's market where they're working innovatively, creating efficiencies, writing more premium into the Lloyd's market. That's the exact figure we want. Of course, we'd like that to be 100%, but that's not always the way it goes. And then in the bottom right is a colossal sum, to be honest. Over 1.25 billion has been raised by alumni since leaving the Lloyd's lab. Now, that is a great figure, which we're delighted with and really shows the value that we are able to add to these companies. Once they leave the lab, additionally, it's not on here, but they're growing at around 80% year on year on average, which again is a figure we're delighted with, especially for the maturity of some of these companies. So the product launchpad. Now, the product launchpad is a capacity platform, whereas for the accelerator, you're looking at companies that are looking to develop and need some help. This is for companies that are ready to go, their product is built, and now all they need is to find extra capacity. So it's a monthly call that happens for about an hour. There'll be 3 or 4 teams that will pitch for 15 minutes. And really, very simply, if one of these companies, this is normally the innovation underwriters that will join us on this call, if one of them are interested, we will do that introduction. It really is as simple as that. It's simple, it's easy, it's effective. It does work really quite nicely. So I'm just going to invite Devin and Alexia to join. So Devin, Alexia, lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us today. So we're just, for those in the audience, we're just going to have kind of a general chat, a bit of a fireside about where these guys came from, the companies, what they've built up, their experience in the lab, and just where they are currently. So Alexia, if we could start with you, if that's okay, could you introduce yourself and just give us the background of GAIA, if you can?
Of course, yeah. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. So I'm Alexia, Chief of Staff at GAIA. I actually started off in VC. So I spent 6 years as a venture capital investor, investing a lot in fintech companies, and sort of in the last 2 years as InsurTech really began to grow, spent a lot of time on InsurTech and did a couple of investments and looked at a lot of the companies that you just mentioned, Kieran, like Flood Flash, we did ULife. So it was really like an exciting time for InsurTech. And I actually came across GAIA looking to invest in their Series A round. So actually, I'm not a co-founder, just because I see that it says co-founder on there. But so I met them as part of their Series A round, absolutely loved what they were doing, and sort of the first time in 6 years that I was really like, I think I really want to join this startup rather than just invest in them. And I think it was partly right time, right place, but also I just absolutely loved what they were doing, and I loved the team. And so ended up joining as chief of staff like a few months later. Quickly on GAIA. So essentially, we were created to sort of help people going through IVF go through the process without the financial unknowns. So I don't know how much people here know about IVF, but it's a very expensive process.
Hey, my friend went to pick up Julian, and he said that Julian wasn't there.
In the US,
Oh my God.
it's about £8,000 for treatment, and in the US, it's about $20,000. And so we're looking to help people access IVF, and so we built an insurance product from the ground up, whereby people pay a premium to start the treatment, and then they only pay back if they've had a successful birth. And in the sad case that there isn't a live birth, then the insurance pays the member back. And so you've only basically paid for the treatments that you've had, and you've only paid in the case of a live birth, which, I think this is a horrible situation whereby you've sort of spent thousands on treatment without having a child, and then you're still thousands of pounds in debt. And so we built an insurance product to make IVF more accessible. And so the founder himself went through 5 rounds of IVF and sort of experienced the whole journey, and there was loads of areas that he wanted to focus on, but he decided to start with accessibility. And to your point, Kieran, like, he knew nothing about insurance going in, and was so grateful to find Lloyd's lab, just for everything that they provided, but also mainly for the connections, just to be able to speak to people, speak to other insurtechs, and just to see how to structure this product, which he really built from the ground up. So that's just quick background on myself.
Perfect. Thank you, Alexia. Now, Devin, if we can go over to you now, you were in cohort 9. I actually shadowed you, so I know a fair bit about ARM. So, but the audience don't. So if you could, again, just like Alexia, could you introduce yourself and just give us a bit of background to ARM for us?
Sure, yes, happy to. Hi, everyone. So I'm Devin Chawda, CEO, one of the co-founders here at Armed, and we are an insurtech for tradespeople. I believe they're often referred to in the US as contractors or artisan contractors. So so that's who we created the business for. I had a previous business, a smart kind of home security IoT company, which I sold in 2019. That led on to this. And the reason we chose tradespeople was we believe they do very important work. However, they're massively underprotected and underserved. And we realized this. The more we dug in, we did a lot of research up front on trades. And an example is here in the UK, trades are, on average, a trade will be broken into or have a van broken into every 17 minutes. So it happens a lot. There's a big problem, as I say, a big gap in protection, a big problem for both trades and insurers. And we thought, we think, given our backgrounds and experience, it's a problem we can address. It's essentially a combination of a tool inventory app, so a way for trades to record what they own very simply and easily, a fit for purpose tool insurance product. We've built a unique claims journey, and as part of that, because that's again where we saw a lot of problems coming from the incumbents. And we've also got an e-commerce store that we've launched, and part of the reason for that is we wanted to offer insurance embedded alongside the tool at checkout. And the final piece was a smart alarm. So it's an IoT sensor that goes in the vehicle, calls the owner in the event of a breach, and also that captures lots of really, really interesting data. Founded the company in 2020 following the sale of my last business, and it's been a real journey. And I would say, we've done a fundraise. We did a fundraise last year. We've got some insurance capacity off the back of what we've done in the lab, and it's now build, and it's go time. So that's kind of a brief summary of what we're doing here at Armed.
Now, Devin, I mentioned about, not everyone comes from insurance. What was it like for you coming into the Lloyd's building and that kind of crash course with the enormous amount of acronyms that everyone, of course, uses and everything else that comes with insurance? What was it like?
It was I thought it was great. It was hard work. It was long days, long nights. But for us, especially coming from outside of insurance, I mean, so my background's kind of tech business, specifically kind of IoT, and we always knew that we wanted an insurance proposition. Insurance actually wasn't part of the original idea. It was more kind of smart protection, but we thought, well, in the event that they have a loss, that's where insurance comes in, and it became a core part of what we're offering. But just being able to talk sensibly to capacity providers, and this is cohort 9, so the end of 2022. Capacity, it wasn't like how it was kind of, or certainly from what I hear, it was kind of 2-3 years ago, where capacity was a lot more readily available. We had to, capacity providers clearly needed to be able to believe in what we're doing and believe that ultimately, we're going to go on and build a big business. And we couldn't have convinced, I don't think, capacity providers to support us if it wasn't through the support and the mentorship that we had. So we had friends in insurance, but we to get the kind of hands-on detailed. So for example, we had about 9 mentors going through the program. And that ranged from big brokers, small brokers, underwriters, those on the distribution side, those on the capacity side. So it's such a wide range. We were able to effectively craft a document that, an underwriting memo that covered things like policy wording, rating, all the key things that we would need in order to kind of go to a capacity provider and ultimately get something signed off. So yeah, we just simply wouldn't have been able to do that coming from outside the industry, and ultimately walking away with, as I say, what we've got, and that is capacity for both an embedded product as well as a clip, which we think again is, we came into the lab to build these 2 things, and we walked out having achieved them both. So yeah, very, very pleased with that.
Terrific. Yes, spot on. Now, Alexia, as a startup all focused on IVF, how do you ensure that the coverage remains affordable, accessible for a wide range of individuals? I suppose with IVF, you could be the richest man, you could be the poorest man. You never know if you're going to require it. How do you ensure that you can cover everyone?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. And, we have to be very careful in our marketing to be like, we're making IVF more accessible, not more affordable, because at the end of the day, if you have a live birth, you are still paying back in monthly installments over time. It's just you don't have to pay that chunk up front. So I think sort of just being very clear on that, I guess the dream is that in the future, with the data that they give us, we're able to personalize premiums even more than we do today. So currently what we do is, we take information, like medical information from people, like whether it's a couple, a single, someone going through it alone, and we adjust those premiums to those specific people. So just to make it fairer from that perspective. We also do cap the premium, and so we work closely with our underwriters. So we cap the premium at 40% of the treatment cost, just to make sure that it's fair to the consumer, and that we're not putting someone who's in a scenario where they're probably quite desperate to have a child and would do anything, and so that they're paying like huge premiums up front so that we can take on the risk, but actually putting a cap there just to make sure that they're not doing anything that they would potentially regret down the line. And so we worked closely with our underwriters we met through Lloyd's to make sure that we were like following everything for sort of doing the right thing by the consumer, and looking at all the FCA rules as well. And yeah, the hope is that in the future we really can make it more affordable, and that with the data that we collect, that we make sure that medical protocols are adhered to, because you do hear stories where doctors are like prescribing far too much medication because they can, and it's the medication that really ramps up the costs unexpectedly. And so if you have like a whole data set across the globe from all the clinics, you can start to see trends of like, actually, for this case, only this much medication needs to be prescribed. And so in the future, the hope is to make it more affordable. But at the moment, yeah, we just make it more accessible, and we cap the premiums, I guess, to mitigate that.
Interesting. So when GAIA came to the lab, it was obviously to build out the insurance product. How far in the 10 weeks did you guys get? I assume you weren't ready to go by the end of the 10 weeks, and I know there was a fair bit of collaboration with capacity providers. Is there any light you could shed on that?
Yeah, so in full transparency, I wasn't here when they went through the Lloyd's lab, but I have heard a lot about it because it was like a very integral moment, like a very integral part of it. Because, you know, like I said, the CEO had zero experience in insurance, but he just basically called up Bupa when he was working in his old job and had to go through fertility treatment. And he asked Bupa like what they covered, and they said nothing, and he was just like quite shocked. And so that's when he sort of started thinking about like, why is there no insurance for fertility? And I think someone recommended, you know, that he speak to Lloyd's lab because you guys incubate so many different products. And, you know, I think it was honestly like the perfect place because it's someone who has like a great idea but doesn't really know enough about it, and just like the people that he met throughout the journey. And you know, like ultimately we ended up building a product in conjunction with Beasley, Chaucer and Atrium, which were all introductions that came through Lloyd's lab, and they took on the risk because they're our underwriters at the moment, because we're an MGA and we distribute. We would do the underwriting and we distribute, but they're our capacity providers. And, you know, those connections all came through Lloyd's lab, and we feel very lucky to have found them because they backed us when, you know, it's a product that doesn't exist in the market. You know, they would like took the time to look through our data models, because there's a lot of data on IVF that we got access to. We bought data sets, and so they really like verified our underwriting models, and I guess took a bet on us, right? And so that was all found through Lloyd's lab. We did not launch after the 10 weeks. There was lots of sort of due diligence and regulation to go through, and you know, I'm sure Devin knows this as well, but when you launch an insurance product, there's quite like a lot of upfront work to be done, which is time consuming, but I guess it also sort of builds that moat as well, right? And it gives you a bit of an edge down the line.
Absolutely. Now, I must say for the audience, the collaboration between the capacity providers on GAIA was really quite unique, and was nothing really that happened prior to GAIA coming in. So really did pave the way for collaboration between the carriers, which still happens today, which we're delighted with. But Devin, question for you. Tool insurance is a thing. There are traditional carriers that will provide insurance for tools. How does your product differ from what the more traditional insurers are providing?
Yes, tool insurance as a product does exist. It existed obviously before we started. We felt it was broken in many ways, or certainly not fit for purpose. That was something we'd hear actually from both sides, both from the trades and insurers. We were finding trades being unhappy. There was a problem with trust, again, both ways. And insurers were deeming this to be a problematic market to underwrite and play in, for a number of reasons, fraud being one. Messy claims being another. So we thought we'd start by coming up with a kind of fit for purpose tool insurance policy. There was also a problem around wording and things like tools not being left in the vehicle overnight. You can understand why an insurer or why an underwriter would want to see something like that, but for the end customer, it just wasn't practical for them to keep emptying their vehicle and loading it every day. They're just not going to do it. So, and a lot of this wouldn't have been made apparent until the point of claim. So when they need insurance the most, that's when they felt kind of let down. So we made sure that we came up with a product that was fit for purpose. But a large part about what we're trying to do is mitigate risk, improve protection, and it was a combination, I think, of not just the the reimbursement, but the protection, and that's where the IoT came in, and I think that's the real unique part, the combination of the two. Benefits for the consumer in that it's enhanced security. We've also got a tracker, and that's something again that we found is really useful for trades, certainly those that have got multiple vans, knowing where they all are. So I think that sets us apart from the trade side, and on the insurer side, we've got better risk mitigation. We've got the tool inventories. You know what tools they've got. You've got the things like proof of ownership. You've got that information up front prior to them losing it and having to make a claim. So that's really helpful. And there's lots and lots of data that we're capturing. All better, I think, helps us to understand, mitigate, and price risk. You mentioned parcel earlier. One of the things that I saw them talk as part of our Lloyd's program, and they kind of saw themselves as a bit of a data authority in that space, and we very much see ourselves being the data authority in this sector, because we're capturing not just data from the telematics data from the vehicle, we're also capturing how often, how they engage with the alarm. Are they using it as they should, as it's intended to? What trade are they? What tools do they have? The make, model, value, or all of that helps us build a really kind of rich picture of that particular company or the tradesperson and their associated risks. So I think that's how we're different. We're doing a lot of other things, as I mentioned briefly. We've got capacity to launch an embedded tool insurance product. So not just you buy your tools, you then go somewhere else to insure them. You can insure it at the point of sale, which I think is key because there are lots of power tools sold globally every year. And also we've built through MIC Global, we've got capacity. It's a clip, but it allows us to embed effectively a guarantee into the hardware. So if you've got our smart alarm, you can buy that, and because it's a guarantee and not technically insurance, the end customer doesn't need to be FCA regulated. So an Amazon or a Screwfix or a Toolstation or a CPO Tools in the US, etc. They can sell this without having to be authorized. And in the event one of those customers that buys one of our alarms, the Arm Guard, suffers a loss, they can then process through the app a claim by which we would pay instantly a £350 tool hire voucher. So it's like an insurance product embedded into the hardware. So yeah, there's a number of things that we're doing differently, but yeah, it's really all about trying to distribute the product, and these are just new ways in which we can sell insurance, and that's really what we're trying to do with all of these new things that we're building.
Brilliant. So, well, what's next really for both of your companies? I mean, Alexia, I see GAIA are always on the lookout for more people and new hires. How's it been going since GAIA left the lab, and scalability? What's next on the to-do list?
Yeah, so things are going well. We're still like quite a lean team, so we're like 30 people, but growing. And we're actually selling like a plan, more than a plan a day now, which is very exciting. And then we have 10 GAIA babies, so we launched last March officially. So obviously there's like a treatment plus 9-month lag. But yeah, so things are going really well. Big on the roadmap is a US launch, and so we've been working on that for the last 6 months. I think, as I just mentioned, with insurance in the UK, doing insurance in the US and starting in New York is potentially not the easiest route we ever decided to start with. But so working with the DFS in New York about getting regulated there. And we will see, depending on how we get regulated, whether we work with our existing capacity providers or new capacity providers. But yeah, US launch is big for us, and we're looking for talent out there as well, which is very exciting.
Brilliant. Devin, any plans? Any big plans?
Lots of big plans. Yeah. So we've got capacity now. We've just done a fundraise. So we're now building out the team. We're now building the products that we've got capacity for, which includes some of the ones that I mentioned. So for us, it's very much about distribution. I mean, we've got customers, we've paid claims. We're really proud and pleased with what we've done so far, but it's now really kind of ramping that up. We've now got a wholesale offering as well, so we're going to be selling through brokers, both trades and mini fleet as well. Again, we've seen an interest in that sector. So we're going to be doing that for the first time, as opposed to just ones and twos that we've been selling kind of inbound through our own website. So really excited about that. We were actually contacted by Tokyo Marine HCC, again, a contact that came via the lab, who are based out in the US. They've already got a big book of business. They're thinking, how can they use our technology to help grow that? So that's something that we're really excited about. And yeah, all of this is kind of in advance of what we hope will be a Series A round in circa 12-15 months or so. So yeah, we're pleased with what we're doing, but yeah, just got to keep that thing moving, and hopefully get to that point at some point next year.
Brilliant. Now, for everyone in the audience, if you do have any questions, we've already got one in the Q&A box. But if you do have any, please do send them in. Now, the first question: how have the results been for underwriters on both of these products? Now, Alexia, I suppose GAIA have written more than Armed have at the moment. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so obviously our cycles are a little bit longer in terms of, you know, starting treatment and having a baby, but so far so good. I will also say that we fix the loss ratio at like 62%. So we have sort of eligibility criteria, which is based on the loss ratio being 62, and we have sort of met that on, you know, our existing data. I guess the ideal state is that we can flex a little bit more on that and let more people through the funnel and allow more people to get the products. But I guess as we launched with our capacity providers, I would say we've been fairly conservative. I don't know if they would say exactly the same thing. But yeah, so at the moment results are very good, and I think 62 is like a good loss ratio. So yeah.
Absolutely. Devin?
Yeah, so we're forecasting not far off that. It is early days for us, you know, but certainly from what we've seen, having got the number of customers that we've got versus the number of claims that we've seen, the results we're really quite pleased with. I think, given the nature of our proposition, and that is, you know, trades entering the details of the tools that they have, being willing to install a device within the vehicle that better protects them, provides, you know, kind of useful risk mitigation data. We're encouraging a better risk customer. So again, I stress it's early days, but you know, the early results are really encouraging. So yeah, so far, yeah, we haven't had any issues, and yeah, but I think, you know, we'll come back in 12 months and see where we are. But yeah, so far we're really pleased with the results.
Brilliant, thank you. Now we have one for you, Alexia. How do you deal with the selection risk, and how are you approaching distribution?
Yeah, it's a good question, because, like, you know, you could argue that people who have already been through a lot of rounds and therefore, you know, don't have the cash saved up. And I think the answer to your question is that we really try and diversify distribution. So we sell B2C, and that's via like Facebook channels, Instagram marketing, you know, word of mouth. We do ambassador events. And then we also sell via the clinic. So people who are at the clinic and are already ready for treatment. And so we sort of sell the product at the point of sale, so to speak, or point of care. I think also GAIA is more than just the sort of insurance or financing product. Like, you know, we do offer like that visibility of like, how many rounds are you likely to need given the data that you've inputted. You know, we have like a member support team, you know, we have nutritionists, embryologists, and, you know, so there's like more of a package to it. And so it's not, you know, people don't just come to us for financing, but people come to us because we've built a brand around IVF, like a trusted brand around IVF, where I think there's a lot of, yeah, I guess there's a lot of like opacity around the process. And so we're trying to bring clarity to that. And so, you know, we're not only attracting people just for the financial offering, but broader than that.
Terrific. Thank you. Next question is one for me, I suppose. What's the focus of the next lab cohort? So every cohort, we will always go broad, new products, which effectively is for new MGAs. Data models and processes, these are for your tech vendors, these are for, you know, your in-house efficiencies. And then like cohort 10, where we had our first regional theme, which was Europe, climate and cyber, this time we're going to have a similar topic, but over in APAC region. So there is going to be a APAC themed pitch day, and yes, we will have some dedicated teams in that region. Next question is for Armed, for you, Devin. Has Armed considered covering additional products beyond tools for trade contractors, perhaps samples that salespeople might have in their vehicles? We would like to have they would like to have a discussion with you if possible.
Yeah, we have considered that. We see tool as very much the start point. It's an area that is it's a very sensitive area for trades. Massive disruption when they lose their tools to their income, their livelihood, etc. So we thought that's the right place to start. Clearly, we do want to build out our offering. actually selling tool insurance as a standalone product isn't very common. It's normally sold as an add-on to either their liability product or their motor or their commercial vehicle product. So yeah, so certainly looking at expanding that over time. Covering, was the question covering sample tools? Was that
So this is, for example, a traveling salesman that may have a expensive piece of equipment in his car or van. Is there something that could be covered in that sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's not really a goods in transit product. It's a tools in transit. But yeah, if I mean, we've got flexibility over what it is that we cover. So we've got that. We've also got, as I say, the added protection part of it as well. So the two can work really well in tandem. We were featured on a BBC show a couple of weeks ago, and I think probably given the timing of it, it was the audience was a lot of kind of semi-retired people watching it from home, and off the back of that, we got a lot of interest in motorhomes and caravans and things like that. So yeah, the purpose could be that, sorry, the product could be repurposed for multiple different applications, but yeah, there's no reason why this couldn't be covered or it couldn't cover tools or products that are being sold and being driven around.
Terrific. Now, we have a question for you, Alexia, in terms of geographical underwriting limitations. Now, I believe you're currently just UK focused, about to go to the US. Are there any issues in terms of countries where there are limitations just due to the fluctuation of price of IVF?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's like multiple considerations when going into a new country. And so one is regulation, like are you actually regulated to provide the service? B, do your capacity providers cover it and are they licensed in that geography? And then C, do we have the appropriate data for that region? And so I guess so it's on us as a company to like look into regulations and get regulated as MGAs or producers, as they call them in the US. So it's on us to sort of sort that part out. On capacity providers, we do have international capacity providers, and so they can provide us with capacity. But again, it depends on how you're regulated, like whether you're property and casualty in the US or accident and health, they don't all have the same licenses. So a little bit of work to be done around that. And on the data piece, so we acquire data from clinics that we partner with, from sort of public data sets that you apply for commercially, which are sort of, in the UK, it's the HFEA. In the US, it's SART, but they're public data sets where like all registered clinics have to put their outcome data. And so you can apply for that and get it. And then we've acquired a couple of data sets from sort of clinic groups. And so we do have a pretty broad coverage globally from that perspective. And so, we can look at outcomes based on that. And then obviously we amend our pricing depending on what country that we're in. So it's not easy to go to like expand geographically, and we have to think about it strategically. So at the moment we're only in the UK, but we do offer the product to people doing IVF abroad. So there's a lot of IVF tourism in Spain and Greece, and so we can cover that, but they have to be UK residents. So the US will be our sort of first fully new launch, and a lot of work went into deciding which geography we go into next.
Terrific. Right, I think we've got time for one more quick one. Devin, in terms of your policy administration system, how much of it is automated? And are there any challenges that you're facing in terms of the policy administration systems?
We're actually just in the process of building a new one. So we were toying with the idea of, do we build it ourselves? Do we buy it in? We don't see that as a key USP of ours. So we've actually been looking at the Salesforce platform. They've got an insurance module. And we've had a look at it. We really like it. We think that may be something that we will buy in. But yeah, up until now, it's a tool is a fairly straightforward product. It's certainly when compared to something like commercial motor. So we've been able to manage ourselves up until now. But yeah, that's something that we're looking at currently. In fact, so it's a current issue we're looking at the moment.
Terrific. Thank you. Right, Devin, Alexia, thank you very much for joining us today on Tuesday with Lloyd's. I'm going to hand back to you, Pat.
Thanks, Kieran. Yeah, it looks like we have reached a good stopping point to wrap it up for today, but absolutely, Kieran, Alexia, Devin, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. It was a fascinating discussion. Before we close today, I wanted to also take the opportunity to mention a program that many of you in the audience may be familiar with. It's a Lloyd's Boot Camp. For the last several years, we've hosted this day-and-a-half-long session, which is facilitated by experts from the market to help our U.S. distribution partners build a deeper understanding about the Lloyd's market, how it's structured, the specific and specialized roles of the Lloyd's broker and the Lloyd's underwriter, the market's various U.S. distribution channels, and several of what we call class of business deep dives that explore specialty types of coverage that are so often associated with Lloyd's. Two recent examples would be crypto asset coverage and sophisticated forms of intellectual property coverage. To accommodate growing demand for boot camp, we're actually holding two this year. The Chicago camp is this week, and while that session is full, our second camp will be in San Diego this September. If you'd like to learn more about how to be considered as a candidate for boot camp, or if you have any questions or comments about Tuesdays with Lloyd's, feel free to just drop us a note anytime at usevents@lloyds.com. So that will do it for Tuesdays with Lloyd's today, and we will be taking the summer off, as we know it's typically a very busy time for many of you in the market with travel and other things. We'll resume our sessions on Tuesday, September 12th, when we'll host another edition of Syndicate Showcase, where we will be profiling AXA XL. As we close today's session, you'll receive a brief set of survey questions in your browser. Please do take a moment to fill these out, as we rely heavily on your feedback in designing our programming and content. So until September 12th, let's keep staying connected. Take care and have a great rest of your day.